Black people that spoke Spanish.
Hair and the freckles and the nose and all that stuff.
Lighter
It bothered
skin
me.
Latinos, they might have tried to blend into the white world.
And you're telling me that I'm too dark?
Making the hair better, get lighter.
Adelantar la raza, which basically means advance the race.
Race and identity crises, common in modern Afro-Cuban culture, have their roots over 100 years ago. When Cuba gained independence in 1898, its leaders made a conscious effort to promote the island by highlighting its whiteness. They wanted Cuba to avoid the negative stigma of being a black country. These efforts led to an atmosphere where Afro-Cuban women questioned their beauty and identity because of pressures from the government, society, and social media.
The role of black women probably has historically been one that is a lot more complicated and a lot more challenging and a lot more layered than their quote-unquote non-black counterparts.
Discrimination by color abounded during slavery as well. Darker slaves were kept in the fields, while lighter slaves were stationed close to the house. In slavery, Europeans imposed the status hierarchy. Now it was the people themselves. The Cuban government perpetuated it, promoting white war veterans over more accoladed veterans of color. When women of both races applied for jobs, white women were chosen without fail. Cubans of color tried to fight back politically by forming El Partido Independiente de Color, the Independent Color Party, in 1908. The party aimed at improving living and working conditions for people of color and demanded equality in politics and labor. The government reacted brutally. In response to a peaceful protest in 1912, the Cuban government ordered the army on a mass killing spree of Afro-Cubans. Over 6,000 men and women died in what was thereafter referred to simply as the 12. The massacre of black political leaders and of thousands of ordinary blacks in 1912, and its violent aftermath, terrified the entire Afro-Cuban population into submission. Never again did Afro-Cubans organize to fight for racial equality and justice. The period after the race war of 1912 showed an enormous rise in feminism. This movement was split. White women, who already had some freedoms, looked to expand them to include divorce. Women of color also favored new marriage legislation, though in the other direction. The old laws had outlawed them from having true marriages. Many Afro-Cuban women turned to marriage to improve their image and social standing. Being seen as faithful housewives helped counteract the stereotypes of Afro-Cubans as loose women and bad mothers. It was also common to marry men with lighter skin in order to ensure a better social station for the children. This idea, called adelantar la raza, or advancing the race, not only affected rank in society, it even encouraged a racial hierarchy within the home. Parents singled out the children with lighter skin or eyes. As the beautiful children, they were given more privileges and attention. Maria de los Reyes Castillo Bueno recalls when her mother forbade her from going to a party with her lighter-skinned sisters. She wouldn't let me go because I was the only negrita. Although I wasn't an ugly girl, I was a black girl. Reita. Parents were not the only ones to maintain that feminine beauty depended on a woman's degree of whiteness. Popular media often depicted beauty as white. Everything from newspaper ads to feature films showcased light-skinned women. Tourist posters and postcards painted white Cuban women as alluring and beautiful, while denouncing darker-skinned Afro-Cuban women as dirty and undesirable. With these twisted messages of beauty all around them, women in Cuba were conditioned to equate beauty with whiteness, and judged themselves and each other accordingly. Considering people's need to categorize and label things, it is no wonder that this focus on skin color led many women to question their own identities. If one is a black Cuban, what is one? What heritage percent or degree on the color scale makes one black or Cuban or Afro-Cuban? What does Afro-Cuban even mean?
This typology, Afro-Cuban, is pretty much a misnomer based on the history of the evolution of Cuba. That to say Afro-Cuba is also to say that Cuba is not culturally, endemically, quote unquote, a place where majority of the inhabitants are of African descent.
Scrutiny of race and color comes with discrimination, low self-image, and identity crises as just some of the many far-reaching effects. Now we must face them. Nancy Morjohn writes, "I am not more of a black person than a woman. I am not more of a woman than a Cuban. I am not more of a black person than a Cuban. I am a brief combustion of those factors."
And then it gets complicated, and nobody wants complicated.